Hi students, I hope you all are keeping fine. Today I am going to discuss a very important area, a grammar area which is discussed in one of the activities in that chapter Varagallu in your first block. In the last session, we dealt with adjectives and the various types of adjectives. I hope that now you have a clear idea about what an adjective is and the various types of adjectives. You know that adjectives are broadly classified into two: attributive adjectives and predicative adjectives. And apart from these broad classifications, there are 8 other types of adjectives. I believe that now you are in a position to identify various adjectives in a passage and classify them or categorize them. Today, I am going to discuss another important area: adjectival phrase and adjectival clauses. Before that, we should have a clear idea about phrases and clauses. What is a phrase? Phrase is a group of words which acts as a unit and it doesn't have a finite verb. Whereas clause is defined as a group of words which acts as a unit. At the same time, that unit should have a finite verb. So the major difference between a phrase and a clause is that a phrase doesn't have a finite verb, whereas a clause should have a finite verb. You don't have to worry about the expressions finite and non-finite verbs. They are very simple concepts. What is a finite verb? Finite verb is a verb which is limited by, which is controlled or restricted by the number and person of the subject and the tense of the sentence. You are familiar with those 3 ideas, those 3 concepts: person, number, and tense. Person and number of the subject. There are 3 persons. You have a clear idea about what these 3 persons are: first person, second person, and third person. The speaker, first person; the listener, second person; and the person or thing that we speak about is the third person. So the first person, I and we; second person, you; and third person, she, he, they, it, etc. So a finite verb is restricted by the person of the subject. It is also restricted by the number. What do you mean by the number? It is nothing but singular or plural, whether the subject is singular or plural. So a finite verb is restricted by the number of the subject. And the last one, it is also restricted by the tense. Let us examine finite verb with an example. With an example of a sentence. She walks to school. What about the person? The person of the subject is third person. She is third person. Then what about the number? Number is singular. She walks to school. The verb is restricted by the number and person. She walks to school. The form of the verb varies according to the number, person, and tense. What about the tense of that sentence? It is simple present. So the verb is walks. If the subject is I, first person, I walk to school. If the person is third person plural, they walk to school. If the tense is past, she walked, they walked, I walked to school. So we realized that a finite verb is restricted by number and person of the subject and tense of the sentence. Such verbs are called finite verbs. So, in a phrase, there should not be a finite verb. But in a clause, there should be a finite verb. Then what do you mean by non-finite verbs? Non-finite verbs are those verbs which are not restricted by, limited by, controlled by the number, person of the subject and the tense of the sentence. Participles, infinitives, etc. are examples of non-finite verbs. Let us examine non-finite verb with another example. Of a sentence. She decides to walk to school. She decides to go to school. You know what the finite verb in that sentence is. A verb which is restricted by the number, person and tense. What is that finite verb? Yes, the finite verb is decides. She decides to walk to school, or she decides to go to school. Decides is a finite verb. It can be I decide to go to school. It can be they decide to go to school. It can be she decided to go to school. So the word changes its form. It is restricted by, limited by, controlled by the number and person of the subject and also the tense of the sentence. So the finite verb in that sentence is decides, and there is another verb. She decides to walk to school, or she decides to go to school. To go, to walk, these two verbs can be considered as non-finite verbs because they are not restricted, they are not limited by the number and person of the subject and tense of the sentence. It can be she decides to walk to school. She decided to walk to school. They decided to walk to school. I decide to walk to school. The number changes, the tense changes, the person changes, but to walk does not change. Such verbs are called non-finite verbs. So, in a phrase, there is no finite verb. There may or may not be a non-finite verb. But in a clause, there should be a finite verb. Now, we are going to discuss phrases, particularly adjectival phrase. There are 8 types of phrases. You don't have to bother about all these 8 types of phrases. Our focus is on adjectival phrase. But I mentioned all these 8 phrases here. What are those 8 phrases? The first one is noun phrase. Second one, adjectival phrase. Third one, adverbial phrase. Fourth one, prepositional phrase. Fifth one, phrases in apposition. Sixth one, absolute phrase. Seventh one, participle phrase. And the last one, the 8th one is parenthetical phrase. So these are the 8 types of phrases. 3 phrases are very important because you will definitely come across those 3 types of phrases in your second year English course book. The first one is adjectival phrase, the second one is adverbial phrase, and the last one is prepositional phrase. All these 3 phrases are discussed in the second year textbook, and the most prominent one is adjectival phrase, and that adjectival phrase is discussed in one of the activities in the first block in that chapter. What do you mean by an adjectival phrase? Adjectival phrase is a group of words which acts as a unit and which functions as an adjective. It has the same function of an adjective. What is the function of an adjective? An adjective describes a noun or a pronoun. An adjective qualifies a noun or a pronoun. Similarly, an adjectival phrase qualifies a noun or a pronoun. We examine adjectival phrases with the help of some examples, some sentences. He wore a watch. There is no adjective. There is a noun, watch. He wore a golden watch. Watch is noun, and the word golden can be considered as an adjective. That adjective can be changed to an adjectival phrase. He wore a watch made of gold. Made of gold is an adjectival phrase. There is a verb, but it is not a finite verb. It is a non-finite verb because it is not restricted by the tense, the number, or person. He wore a watch made of gold. He wears a watch made of gold. He will wear a watch made of gold. So there is no change for the word made. So it is a non-finite verb. So a phrase may or may not have a non-finite verb, but there should not be a finite verb in a phrase. Another example. The Prime Minister unfurled the Indian flag at the Red Fort. Flag is noun. Indian is an example of a proper adjective. So that adjective can again be changed to an adjectival phrase. The Prime Minister unfurled the flag of India at the Red Fort. Of India can be considered as an adjectival phrase because it qualifies that noun, flag. Another example. I like to see a smiling face. Face is the noun, smiling a participant, which is taken as an adjective here. I like to see a smiling face. I like to see a face with a smile on it. With a smile on it is a phrase which describes faces. So these are all examples of adjectival phrases. Adjectival phrase is a group of words which acts as a unit. It doesn't have a finite verb, may or may not have a non-finite verb, and the most important function of an adjectival phrase is to describe a noun or a pronoun. We move on to the next topic. Clause. What is a clause? We have already discussed it. A clause is a group of words which acts as a unit and which has a finite verb. But modern grammar has widened this definition, this view. As far as modern grammar is concerned, a clause is a group of words which acts as a unit and which has a finite verb expressed or understood. Now I am going to explain the definition of modern grammar with the help of some examples. The first sentence, I know that he is honest. That he is honest is a clause with a finite verb, is. The second example, while walking in the fields, I saw a cow. While walking in the fields is considered as a clause by modern grammarians, but traditional grammar does not approve this particular expression as a clause because there is no finite verb in that expression. But modern grammar says a clause can have a finite verb, a non-finite verb. Even modern grammarians speak about clauses without verbs. While walking in the fields, there is a non-finite verb walking. The subject and verb are understood there. The subject is I and the finite verb is was walking. When I was walking in the fields, I saw a cow. So the subject and verb are understood there. Modern grammar considers it as a clause. The third sentence, an expression without any verb. When in Europe, he had a strange experience. When in Europe, traditional grammar does not recognize it as, consider it as a clause because there is no finite verb. But modern grammar takes even that expression as a clause because the subject and verb, the finite verb, are understood. When he was in Europe, he had a strange experience. Modern grammar speaks of clauses with finite verbs, non-finite verbs, and verbless clauses. But traditional grammar says a clause should have a finite verb, and if you get questions in your examination and if you are asked to identify an adjectival clause or a clause, you have to stick on with traditional grammar. If there is no finite verb, you should not take that expression as an example of a clause. Traditional grammar says a clause should have a finite verb. There are three types of clauses: main clause, or independent clause, or principal clause. The second type of clause is subordinate clause, and the third one is coordinate clause. Main clause is a clause which can stand on its own, and that is the reason why grammarians consider it as independent clause or principal clause. The second type of clause is subordinate clause. A subordinate clause cannot stand on its own, and that is the reason why it is also known as dependent clause. There are three types of dependent clause or three types of subordinate clauses. The three types of subordinate clause are: the first one, noun clause; second one, adjectival clause; and the last one, adverbial clause. There is one more clause, coordinate clause. Coordinate clauses have equal importance. For example, he is honest and I know him. The two clauses, he is honest, I know him, both have same importance and they are connected by a coordinating word, or such clauses are called coordinate clauses. I have already mentioned the three types of clauses, and adjectival clause is one among the three subordinate clauses. And adjectival clause is very important. It is discussed in the text. Adjectival clause does the function of an adjective. It qualifies a noun or a pronoun. The boy who is standing under the tree is my friend. The boy is my friend is the main clause, Who is standing under the tree is the subordinate clause. And what is the function of that subordinate clause? It qualifies the noun boy. The boy who is standing under the tree is my friend. Who is standing under the tree is a subordinate clause. It qualifies the noun boy, so it can be considered as an example of adjectival clause. If a clause qualifies or describes a noun or a pronoun, then that clause can be considered as an adjectival clause. If a phrase qualifies or describes a noun or a pronoun, then that phrase can be considered as an adjectival phrase. Adjectival phrases and adjectival clauses are very important, and they are discussed in the first block in the 4th chapter of your textbook. Probably you will get questions in your examination. There will be a passage. The first question is, you have to identify the various adjectives in the passage and classify them. The second question that you can expect from that area is to identify the phrases and clauses, to identify the adjectival phrases and clauses in the passage. So this is a very important topic. You can expect questions in the final examination. And also, if you have mastered this particular area, adjectives, adjectival phrases, and adjectival clauses, that will definitely make your answers, make your language, make your daily conversation more attractive. That's all for the day. Thank you.